right, race fans, I'm Ryan Aho, and that is the one and only Bert Lehman. Bert, we're back in the full swing of things, man. You went racing, I went racing. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. I see you must have spent some money and bought a new sweatshirt.
I did. I went to a USMTS race. It was absolutely crazy. Usually when they have a special, they have kind of a lower class for a support class, and the USMTS actually had the World of Outlaw late models there as their support class. So kind of a cool deal. You don't really get to see that very often.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that later in the show, but yeah, I mean, it was good racing all the way around.
It was. They do a hell of a job down there at Mississippi Thunder. That's why we gave them regional track of the year here a couple of years ago, and that place does not disappoint. If you haven't been there, you have to get there. It's well worth the trip. But, let's start episode 128, of course, brought to you by Dirt Track Supply over in Watertown, South Dakota. Huge shout out to Ron and Trevor and the group over there. They do a lot for racing. I know Trevor's itching to start turning some laps over there in South Dakota. Everything seems to get canceling, but I think they're going to get some in this weekend. Aero Chassis back in Victory Lane. Jeremy Castro, for the second straight week, parked his Aero Chassis street stock in the winner's circle. Congratulations to him. And, I tell you what, they have the parts you need. If you need parts, you need safety equipment, you need tires. Hopefully you can get them. Whatever you need, get a hold of them, guys. They'll take good care of you over at Dirt Track Supply in Watertown, South Dakota. And I tell you what, we're going to get into a little bit of where we went. We're going to talk about some racing, but some people come out swinging. 12 WISSOTA events, plus, of course, all the stuff in eastern Wisconsin, plus Cedar Lake, plus Mississippi Thunder. There was a lot of racing. There was a lot of racing to be had this weekend, and just a couple quick shout-outs to a couple people. I'll go over a little bit more analysis in a second, but a couple that really stuck out to me. My buddy Jason Schill. I ran super stocks against this guy. He ran late models. First feature win since 2014, the B-Mod feature winner over at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Great to see that 11X in Victory Lane. And then Tyler Kittner, I've been saying, can he stay focused? Can he stay focused? He's fast enough. He proved it. Made the trip down to Rice Lake, Wisconsin, parked the 22 in Victory Lane. So if he can stay focused, there's a guy right there to keep an eye on for a national title hunt. And get into a little bit more in just a little bit. But Bert, let's jump over to eastern Wisconsin. I know you went to the high-flying half mile over at Shawano. What stuck out to you? Give us your thoughts. What happened over there in eastern Wisconsin?
Surprisingly, it was cold in the grandstand. The wind was blowing directly into the grandstand. It's funny because I got a text from one of my friends, before I left home. He goes, "Bring some warm clothes." And I replied back, "It's hot outside, but it's a good thing I took some warm clothes." But Troy Springborn put it in Victory Lane again in the late model feature. So he's won 2 weeks in a row. And last week you had asked me who were some drivers to watch for this year, and I had mentioned Lucas Postel, and Lucas finished second in the feature. So he actually ran Troy down a little bit at the end, and he was getting close, but Troy had enough to get the victory. And then last week I had also mentioned to keep an eye on Jaden Schmidt, who's a rookie in the modified division, and it only took him 2 weeks to park it in Victory Lane. He won the feature at Shawano Speedway, so he's off to a good start in that division.
I got a question for you, all right? I know Nick Anbeling posted that his open motor wasn't ready, so he was going to Shawano. I'm a little surprised, right? 2 weeks in a row where he did not park in Victory Lane. Is he a little off the pace? Was he there? Was it track position? What happened? I didn't get to see it over at Shawano. Why didn't Nick win?
Nick was there. The track wasn't the raciest track in the world. It was kind of bottom groove dominant. And I think through the first 3 weeks, the drivers redraw for their feature starting spot. And then after 3 weeks, then they go by point average. and Nick drew, I think, 6. He started 6, and Troy started on the front row, and Lucas Postel started on the front row too. So I mean, they had the advantage, and Nick caught. I think Nick was 3rd or 4th, but it wasn't a really racy track. It was kind of a one groove down by the tires on the bottom. So
a one to go show tip, okay? Racers, if you're wondering, give us a good tip on how to better my odds of winning an A-main. Grab your notebook. Wait just a sec. Draw better. I don't know, Nick. You got to start drawing better, but really, congratulations to Troy Springborn. Back-to-back wins. When's the last time you can remember him winning 2 in a row? I know he's won features, but 2 in a row at Shawano, that's a pretty good feat. No matter where you start, there's some quality cars there. So for Springborn to do that, job well done.
Yeah, I mean, he won the championship there 2 years ago, and to be honest with you, I don't know if he won 2 features all season. I'm not sure. I'd have to look back to see how many he won there. So, yeah, I mean, he went through a streak, about 10, 15 years ago where, he was winning quite often, but he doesn't quite win as much as he used to anymore. So it's good to see him in victory lane. And then, I was in Shawano, so I wasn't at Plymouth. Well, Shawano had 14 late models, and Plymouth had 12 late models. So
who won in the late models?
Jim Schmidt won. Okay. That'd be Justin's dad, Justin Schmidt's dad.
If it ain't one, it's the other. They seem to win a few of them over there. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yep. So, yeah, he won. I think Justin Ritchie was 3rd, and I think Justin Schmidt might have been 2nd. I'm not sure. I'm just going by what
That's not really a surprise, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
So this past weekend in Wissota country, right? Lots of racing happened. I would say my surprise, I think, of the week was Red Cedar Speedway had makeup features in 5 classes. They did not get the regular late model feature, and they just ran out of time, but they ran them through quick. I was surprised to see they were trying to do that many makeup features in one night, but it sounds like they ran them through pretty quick. But 2 modified features, 2 super stock features, Ashley Anderson, Jesse Radetsky, neither one of them parking it in victory lane. If I would have put money on that before that, on 4 feature races between the 2 of them, they're going to get at least one. I would have said probably more than that, and neither one of them won. And it just that tells you there's some competition, and we're going to talk about a few of them drivers here in a second. But a fast start in the late models. I mentioned the different regions, right? Racing for Wissota national title, and one guy that I mentioned, Shane Edgington, and he made the trip all the way from up in Canada to the I-94 Speedway. He parked it in victory lane, a 112 full car count, full points that night. So Shane Edgington off to a fast start, and if he can get just a little bit of a head start on these guys and get a few wins, that might put him in the driver's seat. And another shout out to my buddy Kevin Burdick, right? We talked a little bit last week, Bert, about the rookies coming into the late model division. There's a pile of them in Wissota country. Kevin Burdick led a bunch of laps over at the I-94 Speedway. He said he had some rookie jitters. He said he knocked it out of gear. Kevin, you have a shifter in the super stock too. I'm just saying, right? I guess it happens, but somehow he knocked it out of gear. I don't know what happened there. And he just made one little bobble, and Shane Edgington took advantage of it. But Kevin Burdick putting it on the podium, he got 2nd. So great run for him. And if I said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. My favorite class is super stocks. And there's so many good Wissota late model drivers out there that cut their teeth in the super stocks, and they're all spread out throughout Wissota country, and there's a bunch of them. So no surprise to me seeing Kevin Burdick running up front. I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. Another thing here, in the street stock division, I mentioned Braden Brower, a little bit of a rough start. I'm not sure what happened in the initial feature, but he parked in Victory Lane, got his first of the year, and several other drivers in the street stocks. Kyle Dykoff, a guy last year, Bert, I talked about this guy a ton. Super, super fast. Just got to get that consistency. He got his first win of the year. Mike Jans in Victory Lane, Troy Murner, Frederick, Rex Feller, Castro, as I mentioned, and 15-year-old Ty Agan getting a feature win already early on in the season. Then in the modified division, I mentioned, of course, Ashley Anderson not winning, right? Brian Hobbin won over at Montevideo. Hats off to him. Joe Thomas, one of them young guns over at the I-94 Sure Speedway in Fergus. Bert, speaking of Fergus, it sounds like Don Shaw was not happy with the track. He was like, they got the Challenge Series coming up. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's $5,000 to win this coming Friday night. Right after the races on Saturday, maybe a day later, he completely stripped all the material off the track and says, I ain't happy with that. We're doing it over again. You don't really see that, but there's a racer and a business guy looking at it and saying, look, we didn't get it right. Something ain't right. We got to fix this deal. So that's just Don Shaw doing Don Shaw things. Also in the modifieds, Shane Halapka, Daniel Bargender, two drivers there, Bert, that at the end of last year, Halapka was a rookie. He kind of went on a hot streak in August. He parked in Victory Lane in Red Cedar. Daniel Bargender in an MB. He's a guy that kind of started getting fast at the end of the year, won the legendary 100, and he already got his first of the year down at Red Cedar. And then Adam Hensel, there's a guy you remember, right? Hensy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, Adam Hensel at the Cedar Lake Speedway. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this guy, but Jack Reeboard with a huge win. I'll talk about him more in a little bit over at the Rice Lake Speedway. Super stocks, I got a couple of guys. I'll give this guy a little bit more love in just a little bit. Terrence SpaceX staying hot. Kyle Kopp, who we mentioned him a couple shows ago, his dad raced. Pair of seconds on the week. He ran good. Casey Stephenson out in Electric City, and Jake Knapper, turbine chassis with a Zuli engine, parking it in Victory Lane. And the Midwest mods, there was a pile of Midwest mod races, just quick. Matt Heinzerling with a pair of wins. For Justin Fremming at I-94. Lance Schill making the long trip down to Montevideo from almost to Canada, and he won not only the Midwest mod, but the late models. Bert, good late model calling at Fergus Falls. Okay, 19 of them, I think there was. 3 at Gillette. And there was like 3 or 4 at Monty. I think there was 4, and I think one guy did not start the feature. I just got to say it. I mean, if you're consistently getting 3 cars in a class, is it time to just like ixnay that class and do something different?
I agree. I mean, Shawano, when I start to worry when you're starting to get, in the 10 to 14 range that, what's the future of the division? But if you're only getting 3, I mean,
let's talk about that. I'll mention a couple more winners. We'll talk about that. Shadow Kitchener and Austin Chiba over at the Red Cedar Speedway, Leach at Great Falls, Hoffman at Sheridan, and Chad Switzenberg, his second of the year over at the Casper Speedway in Wyoming. But let's talk about that for a second, right? So we're texting back and forth, and you're like, I kind of want to talk about the future of late models in Eastern Wisconsin, 10, 12, 14 cars. What's it look like? I got a question for you in regards to that. Is there much of a youth movement there? Is there, over the last, say, 2-3 years, how many new late models are there in the last couple of years?
Not, I mean, you can count them on one hand. I mean, there's really, I really can't think of, Jared Seifert joined the ranks several years ago. He was a big mod guy who came to the late model ranks, but now he's gone back to the modifieds this year. That's the problem. There's just no new blood coming into the division, and I'll say the reason is because of IMCA. Because drivers are staying in the modified division, the stock. I mean, you have driver, and this isn't a knock on those drivers. I mean, they're free to do whatever they want, but I mean, you have drivers in racing in the stock car division who are, 40, 50 years old. And, the days of thinking that racing is a ladder where you start in the stock car division, then you go to the modified, then you go to the late model, those days are gone. And part of the reason why I believe there's no new drivers going to the late model division is because you can only race them at 2 tracks in eastern Wisconsin, and those 2 tracks race on the same night. But if you have a stock car or a modified, you can race Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. I mean, you can just race so many more places. You can travel to Iowa and race. And I mean, a lot of drivers do travel to Iowa. There's actually higher paying specials for modifieds and stock cars. I mean, look at Benji Lacrosse. He won $90,000 last year racing a stock car, basically. But he won a 10,000 show in Minnesota, a 10,000 show in Wisconsin, and then he won the $50,000 show down at Batesville. But you can just travel and race all these places where with the late model you can't, because the high paying shows in a late model are for open late models, and they can't compete with those guys.
You're right, and I was talking to Joe Provenzino, and I don't remember the guy's name, but he runs the souvenir shack for Jimmy Owens he's from Tennessee, and he's like, we're talking about late models. He's like, most of the country, they don't run late models weekly. They just don't. Right? They run, their top late model class, like through Tennessee and that whole region, and even Mississippi Thunder, is 604 crates. It is what it is, right? Late model guys are going to be hating on me, going, we can't be going to crates. And I'm not saying we need to, whatever. But we also don't need $40,000 with sort of late model motors that stick you on an island either. And you guys aren't on an island. You guys can kind of, with that rules package, it can kind of bounce around, go to a couple different places. But, let's face it, I'm going to be honest with you. And again, I like watching late models. I do a pick on them, but I like watching late models when it's a good race. But I would say I enjoy street stocks / stock cars or modifieds or super stocks as much or more than I enjoy a late model race. And
I enjoy a good race. I mean, I love watching late models, but yes, I also just enjoy a good race. I mean, I am fearful, and I'm a late model guy, but I am fearful that within 10 years, there will not be weekly late models in eastern Wisconsin. And part of my reason for saying that is there are no new drivers coming into the division. And I mean, Tom Nayert is 65, 66 years old. Ron Berna is in his mid to late 50s. Troy Springborn is in his 50s. I mean, hell, even Nick Avalink, he's got to be in his 40s by now. And, when those drivers retire, there's nobody to replace them. And Kyle Redant, he was a young driver who came in and he's had some success. But there's not enough Kyle Redants moving into the division.
No, there's not. We talked about this up in northern Minnesota here in just not so far past, right? Like late models are dying. They were dying. But now all of a sudden you look at it, it's like, man, there's a pile of them. Maybe it just kind of goes in cycles. It's playing its course. 141, they don't have late models, do they?
No.
But they opened up this last weekend. How many cars did they have there?
They had 197 cars in 6 divisions.
That's incredible. That's crazy. Puka probably a little bit pissed off that he didn't go to that show, right? So that just tells you. I mean, that's a question right there. If you're a fan over from eastern Wisconsin, what's your thoughts on the future of late models in eastern Wisconsin on a weekly basis? Is it going to sustain? Is it going to grow? What's going to happen? But again, A lot of great racing this past weekend. But I went to a race this last weekend. I know you watched it as well. I went down and I saw a little USMTS action, right? I went to the Dairyland Showdown. I went Thursday and Friday. They also, obviously, the big show was on Saturday. I had to head home. Bert, unbelievable. I'm telling you, the culture. Thursday night, I was looking around and I'm like, this place is pretty full for a Thursday night, right? And it only got better. Friday was incredible. Saturday was even better. The fan count there, and that's with live streaming, which that was a shit show. Let's just be honest. I mean, the World Racing Group not wanting to work with anybody, Racing Dirt, okay, wanted to do kind of a co-streaming deal with Dirt Vision. Dirt Vision refused. They wouldn't do it. So, probably most of you know, but you had to watch the late models on Dirt Vision and the modifieds on Racing Dirt. It's the same show. It's just dumb. Just absolutely dumb. Waste of time. Just dumb. And just another donkey award going to the World Racing Group. Just not wanting to work with anybody. They just gotta, I don't know. At some point, they're gonna bite themselves in the ass hard enough to where they can't recover, and they just keep doing things to mess that up. But excellent crowd, Bert. The culture. The racing was good. It was really good. And they farmed the track. A few people got a little grumpy. Nick Hoffman posted on, I think, Twitter, something about, I hope to get a good price on fuel with all the laps the water truck's turning or something like that. But as a fan, I'm going to ask you this question. Would you rather sit through a little bit too much track prep, especially on Saturday, and kind of be a little bit impatient and maybe see good racing? Or would you rather have them just kind of shove it through? It is what it is. Let's get the show done. What would you rather?
I mean, I'd rather see the best racing possible. I mean, there's been times I've been at the USA Nationals and I'm thinking to myself, they're spending too much time farming this track. I've never been to Mississippi Thunder, so I don't know how they do it. But I mean, you want the best track possible. But also you don't want to sit there for an hour while they farm the track. Now, I did notice something though. Now, while they were farming the track, did they have go-kart races and stuff going on during the farming?
Just on Saturday.
Just Saturday? Okay. Because I thought that was kind of a cool idea. If they're working on the big track, if they have some entertainment going on to kind of take your mind off the fact that they're farming the track.
Yeah, there needed to be something going on. My dad was bitching, though. He's like, what the hell? Get these stupid, they can't stop spinning out. Get these stupid things off there. Let's go racing. You couldn't see on TV that they were actually farming at the time. We're like, they're working the track and this is perfect. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? But I thought the racing was good. They had to farm it the last day. It was hot. It was almost 80, windy, and they started at like 6 with time trials. In hindsight, I think an event like that, maybe you could just push back the start time an hour, probably get done at the same time and not have to do as much track prep. Just competing against the sun's not a good deal. But the racing was good, right? But for me personally, I had more fun visiting with all kinds of people that I haven't seen in a long time, right? Because I haven't been down to that area for a while. I mean, I talked to a lot of different people that I saw. I had as much fun doing that as I did watching the racing. You can't get that on live streaming. You can't.
Right. I was just going to say that.
And that's the whole thing, right? You just simply can't get that. It's the culture. It's the friendships. It's a camaraderie. It's them 3-night events. Even if it's a 2-night event, it's the campfires afterwards and the barbecuing and all that stuff going on, hanging around in the pits and just, visiting at the trailer. I visited for a while with Jesse Glenn's. I mean, that to me was more fun than the actual racing itself. And I think some tracks got to take note of that.
Well, and also, and I've talked about this, I didn't watch those races live. I watched the replay of them. And so I knew who won and I knew all of that. And, I had heard comments prior to me watching the races that, oh, great racing, awesome racing, and this and that. And, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, yeah, it's good racing, but I wouldn't go overboard there. But yes, you don't get that sense. If you're watching it on TV, you don't get that sense of how close the racing is, because one thing, and I've talked about this many times on this podcast, because you're reliant on whatever the camera is focused on. The best battles may be taking place mid-pack, but the camera is focused on the first place car, or in live in person, you can watch a driver start in the back and make his way to the front, and you're just amazed, but you don't necessarily get that sense when you're watching a live stream.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And there was a lot of passing throughout the field. There's people coming from deep. I know that Dennis Erb Jr. came from really, really deep. Josh Richards came from, I don't even know how far back he came from. I'm looking at my notes here to see if I can find it. Josh Richards, he got third there on the final night. He came from 21st. That's...
Yeah, and the thing is, you didn't hear his name mentioned on the telecast until there was a caution and he was in the top 5. So it's just like, you weren't able to watch his charge to the front if you rely on the live stream. And I mean, I guess my point is live stream, being able to watch it is great, but it's still better to be there.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And then the mod feature of the final night, right? Dustin Sorensen put 10 grand in his pocket, won from the 4th row. Caden Carter came from 13th to 2nd, and that was an impressive charge through the field. And that was, it was solid racing that whole feature, but you didn't really hear his name till right at the end, because he got to Dustin Sorensen. Bert, there was over 70 modifieds, right? 71, 73, and 73. And then 38, 39, and 40, the 3 nights for the late models, which was solid. Good turnout of cars, good turnout of fans, good racing. Obviously, night number 1 in the mods, Lucas Schott. Night 2, Jake Tim. Night 3, Dustin Sorensen. All locals, right? All locals at a USMTS show. Impressive. Late models, night number 1 didn't go to Bobby Pierce on night number 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
And, yep. And Turbo he come there the next night. I thought he was going to win the next night. I think his tire went down after he hit the fence. I guess I don't know for sure, but his right rear went down. He still ended up 3rd, but Jonathan Davenport, fear of the glasses, he got 2nd. And then we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit, but Mike Marlar got to win $50,000 payday. What stuck out to you? And we're going to touch more on the Marlar deal. We'll touch more on the mods, on the winners here in just a little bit. But from what you actually saw, is there anything that stuck out to you from what you saw at the Dairyland Showdown?
Well, one thing that stuck out to me is the drivers didn't know where the hot pit was. Davenport actually pulled off the track and then pulled back on the track because apparently he didn't realize the hot pit was in the infield. And then Brent Larson changed the tire down close to the track, and then Bishop was going to do that, and then they made him go over the top onto the go-kart track. So that stuck out to me. But the racing was really good. One thing you can always count on at MTS is there's going to be a cushion and there's going to be a high side, and they're going to be throwing sparks off the wall by the end of the race. And it didn't disappoint in that regard.
No, it didn't. And I'll talk a little bit about the bar on the high side in a second here. James Nitro G.O.A.T, he was okay the first couple nights. I think one night he was kind of struggled, but 4th place finish in the 50 grand to win show. Hell of a run for Nitro. The eye test, maybe not the finishes the first couple nights. Out of all the local cars in the late models, he was probably the most impressive. He looked really good. He's got an open car now.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, he does.
An open car.
I believe he had the open car there. He does have an open car, but he ran good against the World of Outlaws top 10 type stuff with a Wasota car. But very impressed with James Nitro G.O.A.T. Glad to see him up in the top 5. Actually battled for a podium spot, and Richards got him late, right? Another thing that stuck out to me is Josh Richards. He has been like nowhere to be found all year. Like at the end of the year, he jumps in Boone's car, right? He goes to Vegas, knocks off a good run. And we're like, maybe this is going to be a little resurgence for him. And he just laid an egg all year. Great to see Kid Rocket back on the podium. Josh Richards, is that a guy right there? You got Madden gone, Bishop gone, right? Is Josh Richards over and under 3 wins? On 3 World of Outlaw wins in 2022, over and under for Josh Richards.
Can I say a push at 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say a push at 3. I'm just from the fact that they've lost a lot of really, really good drivers. So I'll say he finishes with 3.
It'd be good for the sport to get him back in victory.
I agree.
Another person that impressed me was 2-time USRA B-Mod champion Jim Chisholm. Number one, me and Puka are impressed because his last name is where we went to high school, Chisholm, right? I mean, so he's automatically the cool factors there just on that alone, right? So, but he's impressive. Hey, that kid is flat out. He's got big balls and he drives hard. Snuck up into the top 5 on night number 2. Keep an eye on him. I'm telling you what, Bert, USMTS is probably the most competitive, top tier modified series in the country. Okay. And the best drivers right now in the series race at Mississippi Thunder, Deer Creek. I'm telling you, that local contingent down there, they're legit. That's just another one of those drivers that's going to win.
And you haven't even mentioned Shane Sabrosky yet.
that was next on the list. Yeah, he got in the hot car with a Wasota concept engine in there, and everybody's like, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. You know, why would you do it? And I talked to Shane night 1, and he struggled. He struggled night 1. He just did not have a good night. He's like, it's going to be a long weekend. I'm like, you'd be all right. You'd be all right. And the second night, he got 6th. Jim Chisholm got by him right at the very end there, battle up to the top 5, and all of a sudden he's like, hey, we feel pretty good now. This thing's looking a little bit better. And he led a bunch of laps on night 3, rounded out the night with a podium finish with 3rd. But I tell you what, Hot Carl was super pumped in victory lane. And, you know, you could tell that he thinks highly. And Shane Sabrosky, he's got, you know, he's approaching 800 career feature wins. I mean, he's legit. I mean, he's one of the best drivers in the country in a modified, you know, so no surprise to see him there and in a car that he's not familiar with. You know, he wasn't driving his car. He was driving Hot Carl's, which is a Jay McDonald car, right? So racers, okay? I don't get it. I don't understand this, Bert, of the racer mentality. Everybody's like, oh, we got to get a modified. We better go to Charlotte, North Carolina, get a lethal elite, whatever, right? You know, they want to go everywhere else. Jay McDonald's right here. Shane Sabrosky just showed that car is fast enough to win USMTS races. It's a Jay McDonald car. I remember a time in Wasota modified racing where the car to have, if you didn't have one, you weren't winning, was a Jay McDonald car. The guy knows what he's doing. Surprised that more people don't give him a shot. Jeremy Nelson ran really good all year long last year in the Wasota modified. So little tip of the cap there to local chassis builder Jay McDonald and some good runs by Shane Sabrosky. And then we'll touch on Tyler Bruning. That's a whole nother story. Ouch. Okay, ouch. I mentioned Marlar won. Bruning gave one away. We'll debate that in a minute here. You mentioned the high side, kind of getting up on the wall. If I had to give one knock to the Mississippi Thunder Speedway, one, and it's hard to do. Place is beautiful. Facility is awesome. You know, the racing was good. Lots of good stuff happening down there in Fulton City, Wisconsin. That wall opening in turn 1 is scary. That is unbelievable. I can't believe Tyrone. Seriously, at the next time you have a 50 grand to win show, pay 40, right? And take 10,000, which it won't cost that much, and put a freaking gate, right? Put a gate there. Then that wall opening, Bert, where they come in, they're already partway into the corner. I'm telling you what, it's like you're holding your breath when some of them guys are cranking on the high side. Ryan Gustin, I thought he was going to just KO that thing up there in the modified. My God, I can't believe that wall opening is there. I don't like wall openings anywhere on a racetrack. I think they're massively unsafe. Seen a lot of bad things happen. I would like to see a big giant gate there that closes and gets rid of that danger factor. I think that would be better for liability purposes. Is there a point in time where I think them big wall openings like that are just going to be eliminated and insurance just not going to allow it anymore?
Well, I mean, you always have to be concerned about what the insurance company thinks. But I mean, like I said, I'm not very familiar with MTS. Has that wall opening always been in that location, or has it moved recently? The reason
Pierce hit it hard last year. He piled into it.
Because I think it was 2 years ago, Connor Walensky, who's from Eastern Wisconsin, he was at MTS racing a modified the same night that Dirt Kings were there, and I was watching the stream, and he hit the wall in turn one area, and I thought he hit the entrance area, and he flipped his car over.
Right.
So that's why I was wondering if it was moved recently.
Yeah. So Bob and Tyrone, do us a favor, put a gate. Just build a gate. You can do a deal that rotates. I mean, it's a little bit of work, but it'll be worth it. It'll save somebody more than it costs to build a gate. I promise you that there's no question. Brandon Davis, I think, hit that. I think he rolled over night one. I think he hit the wall opening. I'm not positive on that, but I know he got upside down in that general area. And then the last thing, Bert, that stuck out on a great weekend of racing down there is a friend of mine, Les Duhlman. He builds dirt dueler chassis, 3 generations. His dad raced, maybe 4 generations, and his kid Brandon Duhlman races. They have Elmer's Toy and Auto Museum, just 2-3 miles from the track. And I made the decision that I'm gonna go check this out. I've been to some pretty cool museums, right? I've seen some cool cars. I'm telling you what, I was flabbergasted. I mean, it was impressive. Do yourself a favor if you like classic cars, old nostalgia, old signs, all, like just old classic stuff like that. Look it up online. They have X amount of dates left. They're gonna actually Meacham auction at the end of the year is gonna auction that stuff all off. This is the last year. So it's a beautiful ride, right? If you ride motorcycle, jump on a bike, cruise on down there, hit up a race at Mississippi Thunder, go check it out over there in Fountain City. Highly impressed with that. Words don't do it justice. You literally just got to get there. That's all I can say. So we weren't even going to touch on any more national racing other than this, because this was the big one. A little bit of drama, though, down in East Alabama, right at the Schaefer Spring Nationals race. Of course, T-Mac led. Overton got by him. Another $10,000 payday for Big Sexy. But at some point in the future, Ricky Weiss decided that him and Shane Clanton were going to start dating. They had a little relationship about 4 years ago where they played a little kissy face, and I think there was post-race antics. And I got to be honest with you, Shane Clanton got into him, doored him. Ricky kind of gave him one back, and then Clanton drove right through him again. I'm like, wow. And that's my opinion. You can watch the tape. I'm posting it here so you make your own analysis. But it looked like to me that Clanton kind of brought this whole deal on. And I don't know exactly what happened because it didn't show the whole situation. But a yellow came out. They're both in the top 5, and Clanton took a hard left in front of Weiss, parked them both on the front straightaway, and both of them got booted off the racetrack while inside the top 5. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, when I first watched it, I didn't see the first slam that you said Clanton did. I just saw Ricky get into the back of Clanton in 1 and 2. And the first time I watched it, just a racing deal. And then the second time I watched it, well, maybe he maybe he was trying to make a little bit of a point, but yeah, then Clanton just body slammed him in 3 and 4 when they got to 3 and 4.
Yeah, Clanton hit Ricky before Ricky got it in the back of him. So Clanton, that's all he got by him. He drove off the side of him. Not horrible, just kind of a rub him up the track, got by him. Ricky, then he slid him, and Ricky got a run and drove into the back of him and shoved him and got back by him. And like you said, Clanton came back in and it's like, all right. And yeah, I think it would have been fine, but then I still don't know what happened. Maybe if somebody knows more about it than me, post it in the comments. But needless to say, they both got booted. Thankfully for them, it wasn't $100,000 to win or $50,000 to win or something like that. It was just $10,000 to win. But wow, I don't think Ricky's got a huge budget, so that that probably hit him in the pocketbook a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, if this was NASCAR, it would be celebrated what they were doing. So,
well, I think it was kind of cool anyway. But let's jump into another topic here, Bert. Let's talk about our top 5 moments of the week, brought to you by my friend Brad Parson and farmers out there. It's that time of year; things are drying up. You're going to get crops in the field. Get a hold of Brad Parson and his team. You're probably dealing with stuff like high pH soils, tight, heavy soils, you name it, sandy soils, cool ground temps, whatever. Brad and the guys have the tools that you need to solve all these problems, help you get higher yields, more profitable, all the things that you're looking to do. Products built right here in the USA. They have a great foliar. And I tell you what, like you said, their prices of their fertilizers doesn't seem to change like everybody else's, which is a good thing. So give Brad and the crew a call. You don't have to plant your whole field. Give them a try. Do your own testing and see how the results look, because if it can help you create more revenue, create more profit, you can spend more money on racing. So with that said, our top 5 moments of this past weekend, at number 5, it's racing, Bert. It's racing. I don't know how many horsepower, right?
1.
How about the Kentucky Derby? Did you see that? Did you watch that?
I didn't watch it. I heard about it, though.
Oh, man. Jeff texted and he says, hey, the most exciting 2 minutes in sports is coming on. I'm like, and it just so happened I had time. I flipped it on right before the race. Rich Strike, 80-1 long shot, Bert, wins the Kentucky Derby. Now, not only did he win, but kind of coming out of the final corner, getting through the middle of the corner, that horse was in like 10th. I mean, it didn't look like the horse had a prayer. Zigged and zagged, and it reminded me of Dale Earnhardt at Talladega. That's what it reminded me of. Like high, low, mid. I mean, if you watch that race, it's worth jumping on and watching the replay of that race. But here's the deal. So the race was on Saturday. Friday, that horse wasn't even in the race. It got a provisional, right? That'd be like Earl Pearson Jr. winning.
Well, another horse scratched, so
yes,
so he took its place.
Yeah, a horse scratched, got a provisional through Earl Pearson Jr. in the race, right? And the kind of a neat story though was the horse trainer. It sounded like just in recent years, like they lost all their horses, all their stuff burnt down, and that guy says, "I'm done with horse racing." And this trainer decided, well, I like this guy, I'll give it a chance. And next thing you know, they win the Kentucky Derby. I mean, you're talking. This is kind of there's going to be a movie about this. There's no doubt. I mean, it's like, if you like Cinderella stories, it don't get much more Cinderella story than that. So pretty cool. Rich Strike 80-1. Bert, I wish I would have spent a couple $100 on the long shot. I did not. So number 4, Eastern Wisconsin. I'll let you take this one.
Yes, Benji Lacrosse won the IMCA modified feature at 140 Speedway Saturday night. And what is significant about that is it was his 129th modified win, IMCA modified win in Wisconsin, which puts him on the top of the list for the most modified wins in Wisconsin for a Wisconsin driver.
Tip of the cap right there, Benji Lacrosse. He's a good one. I'm not an Eastern Wisconsin guy. That's a name I recognize, though. So I recognize it for a reason. He wins a lot of races At number 3, rookie Jack Revord, 4th generation racer over from Superior, Wisconsin, where I am right now. Huge win from 14th, Bert. So he went to Menominee. I think he got 5th in the regular feature. Rookie. It's only his 3rd night in the car. So he ran Menominee, he ran 2 features, went to Rice Lake, went out in the heat race. I don't know what he broke. Something in the suspension, stuff laying all over the track. Probably didn't figure they were going to get back out there. The track crew found the parts so they could put the car back together. Started last because there was 14 mods, and there was some attrition, and a few people fell out, and things kind of fell together. But I'm here to tell you, winning from 14th, no matter how it happens, is impressive. And when it's only your 3rd night in a WISSOTA Modified and you're a rookie high school kid, congratulations, Jack Revord. Looking forward to seeing what that kid can do in the years to come and the rest of the season. Congratulations to him. Number 2, Mississippi Thunder Speedway locals from the great state of Minnesota. Just want to point that out, Bert. Minnesota. Can you say it with me? Minnesota. Minnesota, right? They swept the USMTS Dairyland Showdown down at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway. Over 70 mods all 3 nights. Night number 1 to Lucas Schott, who 2 years ago was a USRA champion for the modifieds. Last year's USRA champion, Dustin Sorensen, $10,000 payday he took home. He's leading the USMTS points. He took home Saturday night's win, Friday night's win, Jake Tim. And then you look at Alex Williamson. You look at drivers like Jim Chisholm. There's a big list. Josh Angst. That contingent of modifieds, and this is no disrespect to the modified drivers in WISSOTA country, these guys are freaking bolted. I'm telling you. So moment of the week is when you have that big of a show and you have all them guys coming in and they stood firm and they defended their home turf. Congratulations to the regulars down at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway. And number 1, Tyler Bruning's bobble. Bert, that's painful. That's painful. I mean, I wanted to see him win. He needed a win. He needed a big win, right? But his bobble cost him $50,000, cost him his first ever World of Outlaws feature win, and it cost him valuable points in what my opinion is a wide open World of Outlaw point race. I think anyone could win that. Yeah, Herb is leading and Max Blair's there, but I think it's wide open. It's not good. That dominant force is not there. They're gone, right? Madden's gone, Bishop's gone, and now you have a whole bunch of guys. That win right there could have put them up a little bit closer in the mix, and Mike Marlar of Cars Hit Pay Dirt, but you saw that deal. I watched it. You watched it. I want your thoughts on what happened.
Well, like I said, I watched the replay, so I knew that Marlar won the race before I started watching the race. And I saw that Marlar started on the front row, and it's like, oh, okay, he must have just walked away from it. And then as I'm watching the race, it's like, how did Marlar win? And then, yeah, I mean, there's only five laps left or so. And I mean, the track had pretty much kind of locked down, and you couldn't venture high. So I'm thinking, yeah, they were in traffic, but just stay your line. Make somebody pass you on the outside, and if they pass you on the outside, you just got to tip your cap to them. But yeah, I don't know what he was thinking when. I mean, I don't know if he thought he saw an opening open up and he was trying to shoot the gap. But yeah, I mean, he just plowed into Lance Matthews, and then the announcer, the World of Outlaw announcer, said Matthews just kind of stopped there, and it's like, what are you talking about?
That's the Rick Eshelman effect, right? Tyler Bruning's a World of Outlaw guy, so we're gonna blame it on the other guy. I get it. It is what it is. It happened. When I saw that, I'm like, really? Come on. I mean, like Stevie Wonder texted me and said that Rick Eshelman was wrong. So I mean, that just tells you.
Well, and then the thing too, because both cars went spinning to the top and came to a stop. And then Eshman goes, well, we'll have to see how the World of Outlaws calls this. And I'm thinking, what's there to call? Both cars stopped. I mean, that's what the rule is.
That's what happens when you have an announcer that he's got his quirky jokes. He's kind of a little entertaining at some aspect, but he's not knowledgeable about racing, which blows my mind, right? He's been an announcer for how long? And it's like he doesn't have a clue what's going on. But yeah, it is what it is. But that's inexperience right there, right? I mean, it's really what it comes down to is it was rubber down. Jeff Krause texted me 10 laps before that, and he said, it locked down. It's rubber down. I'm like, I don't know. I think it just cleaned off. Well, they had said in the interviews afterwards that 3 and 4 for sure locked down. Maybe not as much 1 and 2, but 3 and 4 was latched. When you get in that situation, I've seen top tier drivers, they'll just follow the lap cars around the racetrack. I mean,
right.
Nobody's going to go out of the rubber and pass them. It ain't going to happen. And my initial thought, Bert, was, is Tyler Bruning going to go high and try to pass a lapper, and just slip back and give it away? He didn't do that. He just drove right through Matthews, which that surprised me. That's a tough break for him. I guess kudos, right, to Mike Marlar. He won that flow night. I think down at Bulls Gap, he won that $22,000 a win, and then a $50,000 payday. Pretty good dude too. So it's kind of cool to see Marlar in victory lane. So Bert, let's jump on to the next segment here. A blast to the past, brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. So, race fans, if you're paying for your own health care, if you feel like you're paying too much, if you don't have health care because you think you're going to have to pay too much, shoot me a text, shoot me a message. I'll get you a quote and see if I can help you out. Been able to save people a ton of money. Literally, it's about half price for most people, and you can go to any doctor. So, give me a text. I'll see if I can help you keep some of that hard-earned money in your pocket and save you money on health care. Episode 128. So we're going to talk about our favorite 28 because I don't think either one of us have a 128. But Bert, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to start with you. Who do you got?
All right. I have two from Eastern Wisconsin. I have a IMCA modified driver who used to race. He's from Seymour. He was a farmer. His name is Dennis Young. Never won a whole lot of races, but he was always out there, every week racing. And so got to give some kudos to those types of drivers also. And then the other one I have, I hope I have the last name correct. Jerry Zieglebauer. He was from the Sheboygan area. And I would say it was in the 1990s, probably about mid-season. He showed up at Shawano Speedway in a late model and raced a late model at Shawano Speedway. I don't remember how long. And now at the time, I don't know if this is true or not, so I probably shouldn't say it. But the story that was going around when he started racing was that he won the lottery, and that's with some of the lottery winnings, he bought a late model and was racing. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that was a story that was circulating when he started racing at Shawano Speedway.
That would be a way to do it, right? That would be a way to do it. I know you have one from Western Wisconsin, and I just segue into it like this. Let's be honest. It is what it is. If you're a dirt fan, especially from this area, right? Minnesota, Wisconsin, whatever. When you say 28, one name comes to mind. Who do you have?
Jimmy Mars, the Iceman.
He hasn't won anything, right? I mean, obviously, Hall of Famer. What's he got? A dream, multiple USA Nationals. I mean, that guy has flat out, not only has he won a ton of races, he's built a career doing it. Of course, him and Chris and AJ, and the crew down there at MB Customs, they got a great product in the modified, great product in the late model. His son, Sam Mars, an up-and-comer. It's going to be cool to see that next generation of Marses. Do you have a Jimmy Mars story that sticks out to you?
I don't have one that I personally witnessed. Just the one that he told us when he was a guest on our podcast when him and Tom Nesbitt were wrestling on the ground.
Yeah, I don't know all the details of that story. I can't give the full facts on that, but there was a little bit of a heated moment there. It sounds like between those two, but
yeah, I mean, Jimmy's won a lot of big races around the country. I mean, he's won the top lists. He's won other big races, and that when him and Berkey first started MB Customs, he won a lot of high paying races that year.
And he won a lot in the when they had the Masters built
right
deal.
Right.
John Tardy and I were talking a while back, kind of the memory. When I think Jimmy Mars, I think left front tire toting around the bottom at Cedar Lake, clearing all the tires on the bottom, driving by people down there. But Jimmy Mars, obviously, one of the best ever, especially in this area, to strap into a race car. A few more that I have, Bert. So I have four. I know it's hard to believe, but I got four super stock guys. I'll start there. Okay? And the first one I have is Bill Clemens. And being that I was down at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway, he raced down in that area. I know he raced for sure over at Casson at the Dodge County Speedway, Deer Creek. Back, I guess it would have been in the late 90s, early 2000s, in an affordable, a really good runner down south. And then another person I have is Denny Almer. And I don't remember a lot about this guy, but I ran against him in Superior, which would now be the Gondek Law Speedway. But Denny Almer, he ran several laps. I think he ran a street stock and then a super stock up in the Twin Ports. Another guy that we all know him in northern Minnesota for being number 24D, but Dwayne Dale was in a super stock for a few years in a 28 car. And then Steve Beach, a guy that I raced against several times. He built the Eagle chassis. He was a parts vendor at racetracks. He's on the board at the KRA Speedway. Steve Beach won a pile of races, and one that really pissed me off, Bert, is we're at the 100. No, not the 100. I think it was the Winter Nationals out in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I'm battling with Dave Moss for a national title, right? And Steve Beach is in his heat. Steve Beach wins the heat, and I'm like, yes, because there was points for heats and features, right? So I'm like, sweet. Beach took a heat win from Moss, right? They DQ'd him at the scales because of no wheel sticker. I'm like, that just chaps me. But that was a memory I have of Steve Beach. And another memory I have of Steve Beach. So my buddy Ryan Schmitz went with me. We went to the Fiesta City Speedway in Montevideo, and I started on the pole. Steve Beach started second right behind us. Third it would have been. He started right behind me. We made it all the way to turn one, and he drove right into my left rear, cut my left rear tire. He goes on to win the race. I pull in the infield, right? And Ryan Schmitz is like, he don't know how to change a tire. He's not a mechanic at all, right? He's got him and a couple buddies, and they're like, they said, do you want to bring a tire to the tire change area? I'm like, I don't get flats. That's what I told them. Yeah, that worked out well. So needless to say, I got a left rear flat. Somebody in the pits shoves a tire over to him. They put the tire on. I come from last up to second. Yellow comes out. They put me to the back. They said, well, you were a lap down. I'm like, So I come from the back to second again, right? And I finished second. And I come across the scales, and they said, yeah, you're disqualified. I'm like, what? They put a bead lock on my left rear. They had no idea what they were doing, but it was a fun race. Well, Beach actually cut my tire, and he came up to me because I bought tires, and he says my brakes went, and he actually gave me a new tire. So, he's actually a pretty good dude. Another guy I have, and you probably remember this one. He ran not only the 28, but he ran the 7-Up late.
I remember the 7-Up late model, but I can't remember the name.
Jesse the Kid Klug.
Yeah.
Alexandria, Minnesota. Very talented second-generation racer. His dad's having some health issues. Of course, Dick Klug built home run engines, but Dick Klug won a bunch of races. Jesse, uber talented driver. He won a lot of races on the late model. I remember he had a Labor Day shootout one up at the Hibbing Raceway, and I don't know if that was a 28 or the 7 car that he had. A lapper literally spun out in front of him on the last corner, and he lost the Labor Day shootout because of it. He's still bitter about it to this day. But Jesse the Kid Klug from Alexandria, Minnesota. And then Mark Troutner. a guy, Z28, over from Western Minnesota. And if you're from over in that area, and he's from Monoman, I believe it is, so he ran like Ada. And I remember, the one thing I remember about Troutners, when there was a 2-day special, that music was blaring from their trailer, and they stayed up till sunup, partying it up. But I remember racing against him and his son, Jamie Troutner, over at the Norman County Raceway. Scott Toffey, another mod guy, Western Minnesota, Montevideo, Madison, won a pile of races, ran a Midwest mod last year part-time, and after several years off, parked in Victory Lane a couple times. So Scott Toffey out west has a big name. And then there's another one here that, I mean, how do we not mention this one? Late model driver, Northern Minnesota, the Italian Stallion, Jeff Provenzino, right? So Provenzino, obviously, I mean, he's won a lot of races in his day, and he started in the hobby stock division. Actually, Bert, it's kind of a neat deal. He started in the hobbies, but they had a go-kart track in between Hibbing and Chisholm in a little area called Kitsville. And they did a lot of that, and then just kind of created that culture. Went on to win a bunch of races in a super stock built by Mark Tremberth in a turbine. Transitioned into the late models, multiple big wins in late models. I think he's got like 3 Silver 1000 wins. And he had, I believe, his probably most profitable weekend racing ever this past weekend, because he had High on the Hog barbecue at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway, and then he's got a food vending truck that he does. And if you've never had a porchetta sandwich from High on the Hog barbecue, when they're in the area, you got to get one, because it's good stuff. And I got one last one, Bert. 28A. Drove for Jeff Provenzino probably 6-8 nights or so, and got 4th at the 10,000 to win Governor's Cup 100-lap feature at the Hibbing Raceway. This guy. Yeah, I drove Provenzino's late model a little bit. Ran pretty well with it. His rocket car probably should have got 3rd. I screwed up on the last lap, let Daryl Nelson get by in lap traffic. But I ran the 28A car for Provenzino, and that was a hell of a lot of fun. And he's probably not going to talk me into that again.
I just thought of a national driver that we haven't discussed, Eddie Carrier.
Oh, wow. There's a name I haven't heard in a while, right?
It just popped into my mind.
So race fans, on any of the people that we just mentioned, share your favorite story, or maybe not so favorite story if there's somebody you don't like there, right? But share a story, share some pictures. If there's other 28s, because there's a lot of them, post your favorite 28, post them in the comments. We'd love to hear that. We just love this nostalgia stuff. But Bert, let's get into a little who's hot and who's not, brought to you by Blue Line Brews. I might become a coffee drinker, Bert. I might become a coffee drinker. I'm starting a training right now for Halberlines Trucking, and everybody that knows me knows that I hate mornings. I got to get up at like 6:30 in the morning. I'm just not a fan. Okay, not a fan at all. So I'm probably going to start drinking coffee, which means I'm going to do the same thing that y'all should do. Jump on to bluelinebrews.com and pick out your favorite blend. They got the K-Cups. They got all the stuff, several different blends, and a portion of the proceeds goes to the families of injured and fallen officers. So a great program they have at Blue Line Brews. Bert, who's hot?
Who's hot? Minnesota mod drivers. They won all 3 USMTS features at Mississippi Thunder.
You are not lying, my friend. And I'm going to go super stock division here. A guy that I talked about last week, Taran Spacek. This kid here, obviously Shane Sabrosky was a national champion. I mean, he was unbelievable, and he will be again. But Taran Spacek put together a really good season last year. And if he can find a way to run enough shows, he'll be in the title hunt. I don't think he's going to get enough to race for a national championship. He just doesn't race enough to do that. But I tell you what, when there's money on the line, he's going to be good. In 3 races, 1 second in a pair of wins, 1 over at the Red Cedar Speedway, 1 over at Rice Lake. Another guy that I'm going to mention here in the Super Stocks, Dylan Nelson, another young gun from up in Merrifield, which is by Brainerd, Minnesota. 2 races, 2 wins. He won at Princeton. He won at North Central Speedway in Brainerd. And he posted some pictures, and I posted in the comments, I can see double-digit wins for the 25. And a few people commented on there, kind of jazzing him up a little bit. But he's already 2 for 2. So I think I'm off to a pretty good start there. The odds are with me that he's going to get that done. So congratulations to both of those guys. Bert, I'm going to start with who's not, because I feel like I'm going to, you know what? You go with it, because I know who you got. I'm pretty sure I have another guy as a backup plan. Who's not?
Jimmy Mars.
That's the first one I have too. So did you see kind of what happened on this weekend? Do you know
well,
there?
He qualified for the feature on Thursday night, but then he broke on the parade lap. I don't know what happened, but I saw. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was supposed to start in the 3rd row. So he made the redraw. He was quick. He was fast, and literally broke a brake line on the parade lap, and brake pedal went to the floor, exit stage right, done. It's like, wow. Night number 2?
I don't know what happened night 2, but night 3, I heard he hit the wall in qualifying and never returned.
Yeah, night 2 in the heat race, him and Brent Larson, the B1 bomber, got together, and that's, you got to jump on dirt vision. That's a judgment call. You can make the decision on what you say happened, but they were battling for position, and it was kind of 1 lane on the bottom and 3 and 4 at that point, and they were fighting for the same real estate. I think to me, it looked like he tried to close the gap, and Brent just wasn't having it. He didn't let, the door was maybe there, and probably forced it in where he shouldn't. He got turned around, and by that point, you spin out in the world won't allow you go to the back, and he just said, screw it, load it up. And then on night 3, he was one of several cars, not just him, but they farmed the crap out of it for Saturday for time trials, and there was a big hole getting into 1 up top. Time trials, he was one of many that hit that hole, but he hit it harder and pounded the wall, and that ended his night. So 3 nights at the Mississippi Thunder, and he made exactly 0 laps in 8 innings. Yeah, that's a tough weekend for Jimmy Mars for sure. Another guy I have, Bert, is Dan Ebert. Arguably one of the best Wissota mod drivers out there. I mean, he's a phenomenal race car driver, right? 18th, 23rd, and 13th this weekend. He's only got 1 top 10 all year, and that was a 9th in US MTS action. I'm honestly surprised. I really believed that this was gonna flip a switch, and he was gonna be in the conversation and winning some races in US MTS action. He just doesn't even, for some reason, just doesn't even look fast. They're missing something in that 60 car, and it'll be a surprise to see if they can get something going. Now, with that said, Bert, let's jump into our sure bets of the week, right? Who'd you have last week for a sure bet?
I had Superman taking the money from MTS, and I got it partly right. He won on Friday, and he probably would have had a good shot on Saturday, but he got a flat tire, and as they were changing the tire, you could see his rim, and the rim was bent, and I'm sure that's where it was leaking air.
Yeah, he got hit. I don't remember who got into him. And I had Dustin Sorensen last week. That worked out pretty good. So I think we're both doing pretty good on this lock of the week, right? So I wouldn't necessarily put money on our bets, but I'm just saying we're doing pretty good. But my lock of the week right now for this week, of course, Jay Schmidt Real Estate over in Watertown, South Dakota. So over 20 years in business, huge racing family between his dad, him, and his kid. And then you look at it, right? If you need commercial, if you need residential, if you need land, if you need any real estate transactions over in the South Dakota area, particularly around Watertown, Real Estate by Jay Schmidt is definitely the go-to. Give him a call. But Bert, what is your lock of the week?
Bishop will win 2 of the 4 races in that swing through Illinois.
Hopefully it's the 2 that I picked them for, right? Which is Stone River and Lincoln. We'll see. That's a good
And
pick.
I picked him for the other two. So
all right. So I hope you're right, but only half right. Let's go that way. Right. So, but that's a good pick. B-Ship winning 2 of 4 on the Illinois swing. And I'm going to go with a Pennsylvania posse driver will win at least one of the 3 features on the Pennsylvania swing this weekend. And I picked Brent Marks in our pick'ems. I picked Brent Marks. I would not be surprised to see him win at least one. Another guy to keep an eye on in that posse versus the Outlaws, Lance DeWeese, who ran really good last week. So
I picked him for one of the races.
They're probably not a bad pick. He's extremely solid there. So the posse. So let's jump into the last lap, Bert, of course, brought to you by Zuli's Race Engines. And just jump on the Zuli Race Engine Facebook page, and what are you going to see? 3 wins this past weekend for Zuli Race Engines. Jake Knapper in the 66 Superstock over at the Fiesta City Speedway, Kyle Dykoff in the Street Stock over in Fergus Falls, and Cody Hatch in a Pure Stock at Montevideo as well. So the proof is in the pudding, right? If you can't beat them, join them. Get a hold of Frank at Zuli's Race Engines, and you'll be on victory lane before you know it. So let's jump over here, Bert. I want to give a quick shout out to the Fiesta City Speedway. Okay, we just mentioned them in the deal. So in the Superstock feature, they went through TAC, right? And after everything was all said and done, they DQ'd a guy. And they didn't even tell him. He's like, I don't know what the hell I got DQ'd for. They had to get a hold of somebody after the fact to find out why he even got disqualified. And it ended up being some ticky-tack deal. Apparently, you're supposed to have 2,800 on the side of the Superstock for your weight. It's not like there's multiple options here, right? If it's a Superstock, it has to weigh 2,800. So they had a conversation. They spoke to the promoter, they spoke to the tech guy, and they said, what are we even talking about here? And they said, you know what? We're not DQing you for this. They overturned the disqualification. They went with common sense because clearly it had nothing to do with nothing. They gave him his points. They paid him for the spot. And I just want to give a huge tip of the cap to everybody over in Montevideo at the Fiesta City Speedway for relooking at that and getting it right. I'm really happy to see common sense paying off. Another thing, Bert, a shout out to Corner 4 Photography in Miller, South Dakota. You know, we talked about we need to have more car shows and interaction and all that. It's been soft, so they haven't been racing. But Corner 4 Photography put together a car show at one of the area schools, brought some race cars in, got some pictures, got the kids involved, got the community involved. So if you race over in that South Dakota area, there's a lot of great photographers. A little extra shout out to the folks at Corner 4 Photography in Miller for doing that. Little sad news, Bert. So I saw a lot of people I knew, and I got to see a buddy of mine that I seen. I bet I spent 20 years since I've seen this guy. And Scott Cooper used to own a super stock driven by Scott Cobes. And we were talking about, remember I mentioned in the past the old go-kart track by the Cedar Lake Speedway, Apple Grand Prix, and all the stories we have from that go-kart track. The owner of that, Bob DeWall, about a month ago, it looks like March 7th, lost his battle with cancer at 76 years old. And I got to be honest with you, that one stung a little bit, right? Because it was like my childhood memory going to the go-kart track at Somerset. I talked to Kaylee Emerson a while back. He sent me a picture. He goes, man, I was thinking, man, it'd be cool to see him. And, I actually had a picture of him I pulled up because I'm like, when I get in that area, I want to kind of stop in, and too little, too late. So fans out there, if there's a friend or family member or somebody in your life that you're like, you know what, I'd kind of like to visit with this person, and just go do it. Just go do it, right? Because you just don't know. So Bob DeWall, I tell you what, a lot of memories for a lot of people at that Apple Grand Prix go-kart track by the Cedar Lake Speedway for many, many years. I mean, so many stories. And do us a favor. If you're listening right now, if you're watching, jump on Facebook, jump to the comments. If you went to that go-kart track as a kid, put in the comments, share that with us, because I'm curious how many people went to that. I know we sure did. Another thing here, Bert, our our current standings, and we had a lot of races this last weekend. We had a few rain out. Incidentally, probably give a donkey award to the freaking Mother Nature, because ever since Bichette moved to Lucas, they don't race anymore. They just cancel all the time. So they all canceled. But our pick'ems, Puka, Mr. Flat Bill himself, he got up to a pretty big lead. He's at 48. Bert, you jumped into second at 45. I'm at 44. Jeff's at 42. Mike's at 15. And Brad is at 2. He was close, but no cigar last weekend. And so this week's picks, we got a pile of them, Bert. A pile of them.
13 of them.
13 picks. Lots of action this weekend. And really quick, I'll just go through it. XR Super Series late model action at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, at the dirt track at Charlotte, I should say. Thursday, is it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? I think is what it is, right?
I don't know.
I think I put down Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but I'm pretty sure they don't race on Sunday. So it must be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They got 4 nights at Charlotte, correct?
Yeah,
yep.
Correct.
So I don't know why I have Sunday, because I'm pretty sure they don't race on Sunday. So Castro Flow Racing Night in America, 2 nights of I guess Illinois Speed Weeks. Wednesday at Spoon River, Thursday at Lincoln, and then the Mars late models go to Farmer City on Friday, Fairbury on Saturday. Now keep in mind, no World of Outlaw action, no Lucas Oil. So a bunch of them drivers are going to go to the XR race. A bunch of them drivers are going to go to the Illinois stuff. It's kind of we'll talk about that in a second. Now, USMTS mods, 2 races down in Oklahoma, Meeker, Oklahoma, and Pensacola. And then the World of Outlaw sprint cars have 3 races this week as well. So, Bert, there's 3 races on Wednesday, right? So Lincoln, Pennsylvania on Wednesday, and then Williams Grove on Friday and Saturday. Lots of action, lots of stuff going on. One question for you, the Flow versus XR, okay? Who's going to come out on top? Will there be a winner as far as car counts? Where do you expect to see more cars, Charlotte or the Illinois swing?
I'm going to go the Illinois swing just because there's so many regional drivers in that area.
I'm gonna go the Illinois swing too. Both of them, I looked at the cars going to both. Both will have quality cars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there ain't gonna be a lack of competition at either one. So if you're a race fan, you're gonna get your fix this week. There's a lot of racing, but on a regional level, right? There's a little bit. We talked about this last week or a few weeks ago. A little bit of drama. So the Red Cedar Speedway this Friday has a Dirt Kings race over in Menominee, Wisconsin. Okay. Also, the Challenge Series, the Wissota Late Model Structural Buildings Wissota Late Model Challenge Series, they open up their season Friday at the I-94 Speedway, 5,000 to win, and then they go Saturday to the Viking Speedway for 3,000 to win. Now, Kanta, right? Some of these drivers, was Kanta at Menominee? I feel like he might have been there, but I don't remember seeing Jake Brodetsky there. Pat Dorr wasn't there. What's going to happen? Where's the, I guess, I don't know what to call them, but maybe we'll call them the top tier late models from that area. Do you see them going to Menominee, or do you see more going over to the Challenge Series race at Fergus Falls?
I mean, obviously, if you're going to follow the series, you're going to be going to the series races, and the fact that there's 2 series races, maybe there's 2 nights of racing versus 1 night of racing, so maybe some of the upper echelon drivers will go for 2 nights rather than just race 1, but it will be interesting to see who goes where.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of putting something like that in the picks. Let's pick the challenges. We don't even know who's going. Last year they only had 3, so we can't pick them. But it'll be interesting. If I had to look forward to something, it's going to be, where do the drivers go here, right? Do they go to Menominee? Do they go to Fergus Falls? What happens? Do they go to Charlotte? Do they go to Illinois? It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. But with all that said, what are you most looking forward to this week?
Looking at the list, probably the Illinois swing, just because there's just not even national drivers. The regional drivers are just so good in that region, and the tracks they race on are just these little bull rings that are fun to watch. So as far as overall racing, that's probably what I'm looking forward to the most. But I am looking forward to seeing who goes where with Dirt Kings versus Challenge Series, and I'm curious to see how the show goes in Menominee, where the Dirt Kings are the headliner at a track that they've never been to before in Wissota country.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And there's so much to choose from. I'm with you on a national level. That Illinois swing, the Illinois Bad Boys, there's a pile of them in national late model ranks. That's going to be fun. Locally, I'm hoping that Rod, the executive director of Wissota, he's passionate about the Challenge Series. We'll see if his phone calls and marketing and talking to the drivers has paid off to see if they can get a really good turnout night number 1 at Fergus and then night number 2 at Viking. And then I believe the Casino Speedway is opening up on Sunday as well. And that's the baddest bull ring in South Dakota, right? So that should be opening up on Sunday. And that's a little quarter-mile turn and burn type deal. And so I'm looking for, that's one of my favorite tracks to watch at. So there is no shortage of racing at all going on this weekend. Get to the track. We talked about it earlier with Mississippi Thunder that if you can get there, get there. The experience is so much better. Bring some friends, have a good time. If you can't make it to the track, jump onto your favorite streaming platform, because there's this from this point forward, you're going to find some racing to watch online if you look. So there's enough of it out there. So Bert, man, it's always a pleasure talking racing. Episode 128 in the books, 29 next week. So fans out there, if you have some 29s, text me or Bert, and hey, we got a guy for you. Kind of like seeing that stuff, kind of give us who you're looking for there. But, are you going to Shawano this week, Bert?
I will not be going to Shawano this week because my granddaughter has her dance recital on Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to be doing family time this Saturday.
There's nothing wrong with that. So, well, with that said, I'm Ryan Aho. That is the one and only Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.